This week on Jerusalem Dateline, Israel is on its way to the moon.
2, 1, 0, ignition.
Israel is set to become the 4th country to make a soft landing on the moon. Plus, an historic economic forum brings Israelis and Palestinian business people together.
Israel wants to work with the Palestinians because they want peace with their neighbors.
And could this new government in northeast Syria be what the prophet Isaiah wrote about nearly 3,000 years ago? All this and more this week on Jerusalem Dateline. Hello and welcome to this edition of Jerusalem Dateline. I'm Chris Mitchell. Israel entered the space race when an Israeli company, SpaceIL, sent the first ever private spacecraft to land on the moon. The spacecraft is called Bereshit, a reference to the words "in the beginning" from Genesis. While only about the size of a washing machine, its mission is out of this world. After launching from Cape Canaveral, the plan will include several lunar orbits before making a soft landing on the moon's surface.
Actually, the spacecraft will be assembled on the launcher, and here in Israel, the control room and the teams are at the last stage of readiness for the launch.
The 40-day voyage culminates with a landing scheduled for April 11th. It will then send back video and high-resolution pictures and perform experiments. The mission has 2 goals. One is called the Apollo effect, hoping to inspire the next generation.
We want the Israeli kids and the Israeli youth, we want to encourage them to learn STEM subjects, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, and we hope that the mission will create the effect and encourage them. The second goal is to promote the space industry here in Israel. I think we got it. One of the goals is already achieved.
And Tebby says SpaceIL wants to show a small country with a small budget can join the prestigious moon landing club of the U.S., Russia, and China. Israeli President Reuven Rivlin calls the venture Zionism at its finest. The spacecraft is also bringing a time capsule, including a miniature copy of the Bible, along with Israeli national symbols, including the saying, Am Israel High, the people of Israel live. As Prime Minister Netanyahu said, the launch of SpaceIL is an exciting first for the Jewish state. But here on Earth, the Jewish people are facing a resurgence in anti-Semitism that Netanyahu said parallels Israel's success. CBN News has been following and reporting on the growing trend of anti-Semitism across Europe. Lately, French protesters spoke out against what's happening in Jewish communities there.
Thousands gathered under a setting sun to protest rising anti-Semitism in France. Former French President François Hollande spoke as France held nationwide rallies, just hours after the discovery of swastikas painted on some 80 gravestones in a Jewish cemetery. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu called the desecration of graves shocking, and another Israeli official urged Jews in France to come home. In response, French President Emmanuel Macron laid a wreath and observed a moment of silence at the Holocaust Museum in Paris. This after speaking out against a French proposal to criminalize anti-Zionism.
All city units are being sent to an active shooter.
The emboldened acts of anti-Semitism in France come just 3 months after this deadly attack on a Jewish community in the U.S. The suspect in the shooting massacre at the Tree of Life Synagogue in Pittsburgh pled not guilty to 11 counts of hate crimes and murder.
It's like a contagious disease that's always under the surface, and sometimes it spurs up into epidemic proportions, and then sometimes it recedes.
Michael Rydelnik's parents survived the Holocaust. He now is an expert on anti-Semitism with the Moody Bible Institute.
And we thought after the Holocaust, most historians and analysts thought that's the end of it. We saw how evil it is, it would be over. And yet, in recent days, it's revived really strongly.
Rydelnik says this type of hatred knows no political party and exists in both extreme fringes. Freshman Congresswoman Ilhan Omar apologized after tweeting criticisms of U.S. support of Israel. And tweeting in 2012, Israel has hypnotized the world. May Allah awaken the people and help them see the evil doings of Israel. The Anti-Defamation League recently issued a report that shows anti-Semitic incidents rose nearly 60% in just 1 year, from 2016 to 2017.
It's becoming clear that America's relationship with Israel could be a big issue for Democrats in 2020. Supporting the Jewish state has long been accepted across party lines, but with some new faces in the Democratic Party, that could be changing. Here's CBN's Jenna Browder again with that story from Washington.
I think what I meant is like the settlements that are increasing.
From Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez,
how has this administration responded?
To Ilhan Omar and Rashida Tlaib, younger Democrats coming into Congress are speaking out against Israel and in some cases being called anti-Semitic. Omar was just forced to apologize for this tweet, suggesting AIPAC, the pro-Israel lobbying group, bought the support of her colleagues. It's all causing a big headache for Democratic leadership and the party's 2020 hopefuls, who will have to take up the issue on the debate stage.
Absolutely. I think Republicans will make sure it's an issue. I think Jewish Democrats will make sure it's an issue.
A.B. Stoddard with Real Clear Politics says this could create a big opening for Republicans, and Democrats know that.
They're very concerned about the direction of the party, support for the BDS movement, any kind of skepticism of Netanyahu is one thing, but to go beyond that and to question the unbreakable bond, I think, is really going to cause a lot of strife within the party.
As well as potential issues with their own voters. A 2018 Pew Research poll found just 27% of Democrats sympathize with Israel, down from 38% in 2001. And younger voters are dramatically less supportive than older voters.
I think that it's a big internal struggle that they don't want to make too public. They don't want to have the debate be out in the open, but they're working behind the scenes very aggressively to try to make it clear to people that we stand with Israel.
A group of prominent Democrats has formed a pro-Israel group to counter any skepticism, but that may not be enough. And in 2020,
but President Trump, when he runs next year, he's not going to do nuance. He's going to hammer them over this in simplistic terms that will make it very complicated for the Democratic nominee.
Instead of talking about other ideas, Democrats may have to defend and explain themselves on an issue few of them want to address. In Washington, Jenna Browder, CBN News.
Coming up, Israelis and Palestinian business people got together and made history.
They want to be able to feed their children. They want their children to have great education. They want prosperity.
President Trump has yet to unveil his business plan, but after 25 years of a failed peace process, Israelis and Palestinians are trying a different approach. Grassroots business ties that build the economy and good relationships. For many, this is history in the making.
As the children of Abraham, there is far more that unites us than divides us. We are not destined to fight.
U.S. Ambassador to Israel David Friedman spoke to Israelis and Palestinians at a first-of-its-kind economic forum.
The last time anybody signed a piece of paper was in Oslo in 1993, but no efforts were undertaken then to make peace between the people. It was peace on a piece of paper. And of course, we know what happened. The next year there was a fourfold increase in terrorism.
Israeli government minister Michael Oren said Israelis and Palestinians need a new approach.
It should begin just with this, with Israelis and Palestinian business people, entrepreneurs, educators sitting together and building a relationship from the bottom up.
Palestinians already do hundreds of millions of dollars worth of business with Israelis each month. And more than 100,000 Palestinians go to Israel to work each day, and more than 40,000 in Israeli communities in Judea and Samaria. But that's one narrative not often reported.
The other narrative is that you've got more than 90% of Palestinians today that are working with or are wanting to work with Israelis. They want normal relationships. They want to be able to feed their children.
Heather Johnston, founder of the U.S.-Israel Education Association, co-sponsored the forum.
Israel has the technology. They have the innovative economy that is flourishing, and they're watching it flourish. Israel wants to work with the Palestinians because they want peace with their neighbors.
There's a paradigm shift here where we recognize the role of government, but we are not putting all of our eggs in that basket.
Israeli Ari Zimmerman lives in Ariel, and Palestinian Ashraf Jabari lives in Hebron. They co-founded the Judea and Samaria Chamber of Commerce and Industry.
We need to look to a different sector, not the government sector, for stability and sustainability. We need to look to the business sector. This is a business sector empowerment movement where we say that business leaders are the ones who are paying people's salaries.
First of all, we're neighbors in the territories in Hebron. Our neighbors are Jewish. We worked together 50 years ago until Oslo. The politics in our area is making all these problems.
U.S. Senator James Lankford says Congress is paving the way for the U.S. government to back this project.
So for the first time ever, American financial dollars are actually going towards helping the cooperation between Palestinian and Israeli business leaders in cooperating together.
Lankford said it's not about a peace process, but simply making peace.
One of the areas that we need to be able to see is more engagement on the business side, where it's just family to family and business to business actually doing it.
Jabari says he's not afraid to work with Israelis.
We're looking toward the future of our children from both sides. Whoever wants real peace, in my opinion, has to continue in this way. There's no other way. There's only one way. We have to live together.
An overwhelming percentage of Palestinian Arabs want peace with Israel. And one prominent leader says he would prefer living under the Jewish state than the Palestinian Authority. CBN's Scott Ross traveled to the ancient city of Hebron, where he talked with a Jew and an Arab who believe peace between them is possible.
Hebron is often known as one of the most volatile cities in the West Bank. But here in what's also the most prosperous Palestinian Arab city, a different kind of peace between Israelis and Palestinians is discussed on both sides. Jabri and Arnon have been friends for 30 years. After our initial exchange, Jabri preferred to speak mostly in Hebrew. You two are friends. You're an Arab and he is a Jew.
Yes.
Why are you friends?
He's our neighbor.
Neighbors?
Yes.
And you get along together?
Yes.
So it is possible for Jews and Arabs to live together in friendship without any conflict?
Yes, without any doubt. 30 years ago, we were working together, doing business together.
Why don't more Jews and Arabs live as you live with your friend?
Because of the politicians.
More than 25 years ago, Israel opened the door for Yasser Arafat and the Palestinian Liberation Organization, or PLO, from Tunis by recognizing them as the sole representative of the Palestinian people in negotiations. Arafat and then Israeli Prime Minister Yitzhak Rabin signed the Oslo Accords on the White House lawn in 1993. Creating the Palestinian Authority out of the PLO to govern the Palestinians. The aim? To end the Israeli-Palestinian conflict and eventually establish a Palestinian state in biblical Judea, Samaria, and Gaza. Jabri says it hasn't worked.
PLO.
The PLO signed the Oslo agreements 25 years ago. Until today, we didn't reach peace. It's the opposite. We started with a very big problem.
In the Oslo Accord, the Israeli government had brought the PLO to control the local population. And they said, you bring those people, the corrupted and the terrorists, to control us? Why? I feel ashamed about that. We disappointed them, we betrayed them.
What did the PLO think of you?
I don't care what the PLO thinks about me. What's important for me is how we can all live together in this area, in the state of Israel. If we follow their way, we won't have peace even in the next 50 years.
And he says there has to be another way.
How will we live together? Under the government of Israel. In the end, this is the only solution.
Even though Jabri says the masses want to change, saying so would get them in trouble with the Palestinian Authority. Have your enemies threatened you?
We're not afraid of anyone. We speak from our hearts. We speak the truth.
Do you have hope for the future, for peace in the land?
Of course, there's hope, but we have to continue in the way of real peace from both sides. The problem between us is a political problem.
Jabri, who is a businessman, and other Palestinian and Israeli businessmen have ideas about how to make person-to-person relations work, and they want the world to help. Scott Ross for CBN in Hebron.
Up next, could a budding democracy in northeast Syria bring the fulfillment of prophecy? For decades, Israel has been the only true democracy in the Middle East. Now, a new effort is underway in northeast Syria. It's based on equal rights and religious freedom. But this new democracy could be short-lived if U.S. forces leave the area. This new government runs from the Tigris to the Euphrates rivers.
We have a political system that was based on a social contract between all the groups, Arabs, Kurds, Syria, Christians. In this social contract, they articulated how they want to live together as diverse ethnicities and diverse religions.
Bassam Isaac is seeking support from U.S. leaders for this new government. He calls it a golden opportunity.
I don't think ever any political system in the Middle East guaranteed religious freedom. If you go back hundreds and thousands of years, this has not happened.
They also see a common bond.
Much of our aspiration actually is in line with the American Revolution. We don't want a country where citizenship and rights are based on ethnic identities or religious identity. We want all Syrians to be equal. We believe they were all created by God equal and to be free.
They also find inspiration in the Bible, where the prophet Isaiah wrote of a holy highway from Assyria, part of modern-day Syria, through Israel and Egypt.
This is actually our dream, is that the highway, that the crescent will be the Isaiah crescent, Lord willing, because it's a crescent of peace and prosperity. And according to Isaiah, when this Isaiah crescent is established, it will be a blessing for the whole earth. So we are really yearning for the Isaiah crescent.
Yet, he says, they need protection so this dream and democracy can stay alive. Ishaq says he wants to tell President Trump the existence of Christians there hangs in the balance given surrounding threats.
So I would say to him, Mr. President, God is entrusting you. God has entrusted America with power and ability. Please seek God, ask God before you make the decision, so that Christianity is not eradicated from Syria and from historical Mesopotamia.
Up next, an appeal for prayer and fasting for Israel and the Middle East for such a time as this. Many people became deeply concerned when President Trump announced the U.S. would pull troops out of northeast Syria. Since then, the White House has decided to leave 200 peacekeepers behind. Still, a major prayer ministry here in Jerusalem is issuing a call to prayer and fasting for Christians in the area, for a new democracy in northeast Syria to flourish, and for Israel to be protected from its enemies. Here's some of that call to prayer and fasting.
Hello, this is Rick Ridings from Sukkot Hallel 24/7 House of Prayer in Jerusalem overlooking the Temple Mount. There's some urgent developments here in the Middle East that are so important that we believe decisions will be made in these next 2 months that could affect the destiny, the fate of millions of people in this region, and even the future of Israel. These decisions are so important that we're calling for a united time of prayer and fasting in the style of Queen Esther. We would like to ask for this to begin on Friday, March 1st. We ask you to pray in 3 areas. The first of these is for northeast Syria. An amazing development has happened there, and a democracy has emerged that is representing all the peoples. It's even encouraging the participation of women. It is very committed to the protection of the Christians and of the Kurdish people of that region, that there be no genocide. A second area of prayer When President Trump announced the decision to pull out troops from northeast Syria, immediately, 3 of those countries from which I saw highways, Turkey, Russia, and Iran, put their focus on northeast Syria. Iran would like to build a land bridge that could even allow them to come against Israel. All 3 of these nations have the potential, if they are in complete control in that area, to allow a genocide of the Christians and of the Kurds of that area. Thirdly, here in Israel, we are having elections on April 9th. President Trump has announced that they would postpone the announcement of their peace plan for the Middle East until after these elections. This gives us a little more time to pray. And we would encourage you to pray and believe together with us that any kind of evil counsel that would seek to divide up the land of Israel, that would bring judgment according to Joel chapter 3, would be thwarted. We believe that God is absolutely sovereignly in control, as in the days of Esther, but he uses us. And so we encourage you to pray in whatever way, pray and to fast in whatever ways the Lord may lead to during 3 days starting on March 1st. Agree with us for God's purposes to prevail for northeast Syria, for Israel, for this region, so that the kingdom of God may progress and go forward, and that the people may be protected sovereignly, even as they were in the time of Esther.
Please join in this call if you can to fast and pray for God's purposes here in Israel and throughout the Middle East. The stakes are very high. And if you do fast, please check with your doctor if necessary. Well, that's all for this edition. Thanks for joining us. Remember, you can follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. I'm Chris Mitchell. We'll see you next time on Jerusalem Dateline.
이 프로그램은 CTS 방송가족의 사랑과 후원으로 제작되었습니다. 후원 전화 02-6333-1003번, ARS 060-800-1111번으로 전화주세요.